Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is L Spectra, and today I want to talk about offensive setups in Apex and Legends Arena. So, offensive setups, I'm specifically referring to Season 6 because prior to this, I talked a lot about Season 5 and how we have the rally meta with Titanos. But no, that is the meta is completely different in Season 6, and I just want to spend a little bit of time discussing some of the battle results between me as well as other people, and then hopefully do a live demonstration of particular setups you might want to use for offense in the Arena of Legends. And of course, this will apply to the Apex Arena as well, since as people who watched my previous video know by now, the attackers and defenders are predefined in Apex Arena. Because the reset is coming up in just over 10 minutes, let's dive right in. So, the first match I want to discuss is between Ifhif and Young OG, both very strong players. Ifhif, of course, significantly stronger than Young OG. But mostly, I just want to focus the Season 6 setup because one characteristic about Season 6 combat is that a weaker team, or I should say a weaker lineup of three teams, could get demolished by a properly constructed lineup of three teams, even though the opponent might have much weaker stats than you. And of course, whether you're on the offensive side or you're on the defensive side, that matters quite a bit because if you time out as a defender, your opponent's team will get wiped regardless of whether he has troops or not. So overall, being a defender is easier than being an attacker. But that's besides the point. I'm here to discuss the different setups. And diving into Ifhif versus Young OG, we can see that the first team is Season 6 with Arma, equipped with Season 6 Arma, versus a pure Season 6 team without Arma. Now, one thing that I would never recommend is to use Season 6 Arma on Season 6 heroes. Season 6 Arma is very powerful because first of all, they represent Season 6 heroes. And second of all, you can attach different season passives to that Season 6 Arma skills. Meaning that, for example, in the case of Quinn or in the case of Lisbeth, you can take advantage of their unique passive to boost the Season 6 skills. So in the case of Quinn, you will take 30% less melee damage, and that is a big part of Season 6 damage. Okay, so looking at the results here, the first fight, I would expect Young OG to lose, but one trick he has up his sleeves as a defender is to try to time out. So versus a Season 6 attacking team, what is the best way to time it out? And the way to do that, it is to use mostly infantry and a bit of cavalry. And the main role of the cavalry is to just kill the archers. Kill the archers in one hit. Now, one advantage you have as a defender is that your cavalry will attack first, meaning that your cavalry's damage will be applied before his cavalry gets to deal damage to your cavalry, whereas his cavalry's damage will be cut by the damage that your cavalry can deal to his cavalry first. But anyways, your cavalry's main job is to kill the opposing army's archer. And the main reason we want to do that is just so that the archer does not continuously deal melee damage to your infantry, which can that damage can kind of build up. So let's see what composition Young OG ran. So this is a pretty terrible composition. His archer composition is completely useless. The archer hero actually has very useless skills versus Season 6. First and foremost, his ultimate skill is just a protective skill. It doesn't really it deals no damage at all. And his second skill, it pretty much expires after 15 seconds. So the most useful skill, and the primary reason why the archer is actually important in the Season 16, is his third skill, which buffs the infantry. But because his third skill is a passive skill, you don't need to keep the archer alive. You can just run one troop and have him die immediately. It doesn't matter because the passive skill will be applied to the infantry, regardless of whether he's alive or dead. So using 67,000 troops here is 67,000 troops he could have used on the infantry. So if he used, for example, 170,000 infantry and then 20,000 cavalry, I believe he could have easily timed this out because this is not a very attack-heavy comp. if HIF wanted to prevent a possible timeout situation, the way to do it is to go very heavy on cavalry. And this is how you do it, especially if you are stronger than the defender. Just go very heavy cavalry. I wouldn't say very heavy. Actually, about a 1.5 to 1 ratio between the cavalry and infantry. For example, 70,000 infantry and 170,000 cavalry, and then 1 archer. Because your goal is really just to prevent a timeout from one of their strongest teams. So, for example, if Young OG times out if, then his second team, which is very good, to be honest, it will be able to contend against this team without losing the archer. If you lose the archer, you already lost like 80% of the battle, because without the archer passive, your infantry will not get boosted from that incredible skill 3 buff. So he lost this fight, and then the rest is irrelevant. So the next matchup I want to cover is between me and General once again. This time I'm on the attacking side, and I know that I am at a disadvantage by being on the attacking side. However, there are still specific setups we can use to kind of take advantage of a weak defense. And by weak defense, I mean the composition being mediocre. So for example, in the case of General, because his stats are so much higher than mine, about 300% to 400% higher, I know I cannot defeat his team. Even though it seems that I came close, I'm actually not very close at all. Because you can see he started with very few infantry, and he ended with very few infantry, but it is still infantry, and his infantry is incredibly tanky. So the way I did it is I could not afford to run high cavalry, 1.5 cavalry to 1 infantry ratio, because that is mostly reserved for when your defending opponent is weaker than you, or at most similar strengths to you. So I ran 1 archer because this is my first team and the archer is useless. I just need the passive. And my infantry was able to delete a majority of his army, his cavalry and his archer. And this is important because in my following team, in the team following that, I cannot afford to have my archer die. I cannot afford to use too high of a troop count on the archer. So, of course, I cannot use 1 troop on the archer now. So I use about 70,000 troops. Now, the reason why I use 70,000 troops is mostly due to his following team. His following team is actually very weak. It is a full-fledged Season 5 team. And Season 5, the only advantage that Season 5 has against Season 6 is Michael. He is able to suppress a lot of damage from the Season 6 infantry as well as cavalry with his rage skill, because his rage skill has like an 80 to 90% damage suppression. It used to be 90, but now it's like 80, and I'm not too sure anymore. But anyways, the Season 5 infantry is able to suppress the damage of the infantry and cavalry for Season 6. Meaning that unless you wanna, if you're not careful, you'll actually get timed out by Michael. For example, if you use infantry heavy or infantry plus cavalry heavy, Quinn will deal a lot of damage to your cavalry, so your cavalry will end up dying, and then Michael will just suppress your infantry to infinity, and you will not be able to kill their Michael. And this means that you really should be running a lot of archer. And I'm just gonna play back this battle, just to show, first of all, how important the archer is, and second of all, why you kind of want to use Windstrider, not necessarily in a Season 6 versus Season 6 team battle. In Season 6 versus Season 6, Windstrider is actually completely useless. You want to use like a high stat but not so effective Titanos, like Resonated Odin. I mean, not Resonated Odin, like Resonated Moonbane or Resonated Nightsaber. Those are quite sufficient, I would say, for Season 6 versus Season 6, especially when you are put under this situation where you need to use a strong Titanos for your Season 5 versus Season 5. Because here I'm going against Season 5, Windstrider is actually very effective. And I just want you to take a look at the damage that Windstrider is able to deal to his backline, cavalry and archer primarily. It is able to immediately suppress his cavalry and archer so that they are not able to do much damage to me. And the reason why I ran Morgan here is just to protect my archer. I want to keep my archer alive. And due to Morgan's skill 3, which makes my archer use his rage skill faster, the archer is able to protect himself much better than if I didn't use that skill. In this fight, it probably didn't matter, but I just didn't want to risk his Quinn being able to snipe my archer. Because once my archer is dead, then the next fight will be a little troublesome because I no longer get the archer buff. But because I did get the archer buff, the next fight was very trivial. The infantry is very, very strong when you do have the archer buff. We're kind of running out of time, but I guess I can go over one or two more. In this case, so JFK here is on the defending side. If I were him, I would just run heavy infantry, 20k cavalry. Let's see what he ran. So this is a little suboptimal. It's decent, but not something that I would particularly run. So I would run one archer here because it is in the first team. If you're running S6 or S6 Arma in the first team, you always want to run one archer. Of course, you have to know that the enemy is attacking you with Season 6. You don't necessarily want to do this in Legends Arena because the enemy can just disable you by running a dummy team to just kill your one troop archer and then run a Season 6 to destroy you. But in a Apex Arena, you can see what setup your enemy is running. So you can run one archer, fewer cavalry, and put the rest into infantry. I'm not too sure if he would have succeeded, but I think he would have had a better chance at surviving this attack, which I really don't think is that strong. And the next composition is nothing to really talk about. Let's see if we can cover one more, maybe from Zone 5. So, okay, so this is a problem. You always want to combine Season 6 infantry with Season 6 archer. You never really want to use Season 5. Like, it's completely pointless because you miss out on all the buffs that Season 5 contributes to the infantry. It literally makes your infantry like hit 3 times harder. That's not even an understatement. So yeah, his infantry was able to deal, you can see absolutely nothing. His infantry was just complete shit here. So, oh, did it close? Yeah, it closed. So in this case, I will be the defender while Psycho is the attacker. His comp is relatively good. So actually, so let's talk about this composition a little bit. I think it's a fairly interesting defensive composition because instead of running 2 pure Season 6, so meaning a Season 6 team and a Season 6 Arma team, you run you switch Michael and the Season 6 Arma between the teams. And the reasoning for that is the purpose of this team is to kill the archer. It basically guarantees that you will kill any archer that your opponent is running due to the cavalry. The cavalry is just so good at taking out the archer. And then the purpose of this team is to stall you out. Without the archer, your season 5 team, your Season 6 team is basically worthless because your infantry will not be getting that 3-fold damage buff. So I don't really think this is a weak defense setup, but it is a weak attack setup, and I might just take advantage of it. We will go to that later. For now, we have Arena of Legends to contend with. So I guess we can just move right into a live demonstration of how I would set myself up for the Arena of Legends. So, of course, because we are facing non-trivial opponents, make sure that you buff prior to starting any kind of fights in the Arena of Legends. I'm not going to go all out on the buffs, but I'm just going to use a few of the most basic ones. Attack, defense, ferocity. I think I already used that. Okay, let's go. So my first opponent looks to be very easy. Let me just check my attack teams. Let me just change the setup to something. Oh, I actually need to switch my armas around. Good thing I checked. And you always want to check because the optimal Battle of Disorder teams are not the optimal teams outside of Battle of Disorder. I can guarantee you that. So let's switch some things out. So this looks fine. This looks fine. This is not fine. Okay, so I got my season 6. Good. Oh yeah, I forgot something. So my season 6 archer. So this was for general specifically because I was running one troop in my first team, so I didn't need good equipment on my archer. And on my second team, I needed a strong archer, which is why I switched out my gear. And this is something that you should kind of learn doing, especially if you're contending against situations where you could potentially win. I'm just going to check the rest of my equipment just to be safe about it. You can see my equipment overall is fairly mediocre. And to be honest, with the advent of Season 6, you don't really need super good equipment, although it definitely helps. But in the context of the Battle of Disorder, it really doesn't help much because Battle of Disorder, the engine is just kind of weird and stats really don't have much impact in there. It is mostly about using the right troop, primarily like Kellerman Disarm, and that's very powerful in the Battle of Disorder. And yeah, let's just dive right in. My buffs will only last 30 minutes, so I don't want to spend too long on this. And one thing I'm doing here is to switch out my Titanos because I don't really need a strong Titanos versus Season 16. Okay, whatever. This is just standard. Okay, I'm not going to lose to this guy no matter what I run, so I'm just going to skip him. So my 3 primary opponents here are young OG, Joe Zero, and to some extent my clanmate JFK. So this guy is running fairly standard. This is very weak, by the way. So I'm just going to crush him. And I'm just going to fast forward this replay to just show how quickly your opponents can die. I mean, how quickly your opponents die, pretty much. So this opponent is much weaker than I am. And what I'm going to... Yeah, it's not even worth watching. Okay, next one is... looks to be fairly trivial. So this is really bad. You don't really want to separate like your cavalry, especially equipped with armor. Okay, this is really bad. I'm not gonna describe it. And I think people really shouldn't underestimate how much impact just good setups have nowadays in this game. Okay, so this is the first strong opponent, and his stats are so high that even though he's running, thankfully, I should thank him personally because he's thankfully running a low troop setup, which makes it possible for me to beat him because this setup is very good. And if he was running a normal setup, it wouldn't be possible to beat him at all. So let's just adjust my formations. So let's check what he's running. So he's running Season 6 and then Season 6 Arma and then a Season 5. So his Season 5 is weak, but I need to deal with his Season 6 teams. Because his composition is... because his overall troop count is so low, there's really no way he can kill me. So the only danger when facing him is if he times you out. So what I'm going to do here is... Let's see... So his first team is weaker than the second team, so I'm going to run my weaker team in my first team. And I forgot to do one more thing. I forgot to give my Morgan the Quinn Arma. Let me just do that real quick. Okay, now I'm all ready. So let's go to the arena. Let's not press showdown accidentally. So in order to kill him, I will run one archer here because there's no way the archer can survive, and then equal infantry and cavalry. In the second team, if by chance the first team times me out, I don't want to just automatically lose because his remaining infantry is able to kill my archer. So I'm just going to run like 15k archer, and then probably a 1-to-1 ratio for the rest. Okay. And the third team, once again, if the second team is able to somehow survive with the infantry on like very minimal HP, I don't want that infantry to suddenly kill my cavalry, because my third team is going to lose to the next team if he does that. So I'm just going to run something like this. And this is mostly just to prevent him from killing my cavalry. So let's go in. And let's just watch the replay. So you can see that he is only running 20,000 troops, but due to his high stats, even those 20,000 troops are quite scary actually, especially because he's on the defending side. And for Legends, Arena of Legends, you will always be on the attacking sides whenever you're playing the game mode. So you always need to be careful to not get timed out and to not get your archers sniped, because once again, the Season 6 hero team is very weak once the archer gets sniped. So in this scenario, I am quickly able to kill his cavalry, and the hope now is that my cavalry will stay alive long enough to deal a decent amount of damage to his infantry, so he doesn't time me out. And you can see just how hard it is to actually kill this infantry. Now my cavalry is dead, and thankfully my infantry has more than enough troops to kill the remainder of his infantry. So moving on to the next battle. Well, this isn't very interesting because his team is just gonna kill my team. And he's actually running a decent number of troops. I think just a few days ago he was running 144,000, but now he's running 150,000. Maybe he's trying to stop me from climbing as fast. But I think we can still manage this. So the damage that I'm doing right now is really non-significant. All that damage is going towards the archer, and it doesn't matter because I'm going to kill the archer here anyways. So in this case, my 15,000 archer didn't really play much of a role, but it was just more of an insurance because I didn't want him to be able to kill my archer in case his team survived on a sliver of HP, because it does happen. So yeah, let's just see how this goes. This is my strong team, so he should not be able to kill me, but there's still a risk that he can time me out, and that is what I'm trying to prevent. So here, thankfully, my cavalry still has some degree of HP, so you can see that my cavalry is dealing a decent amount of damage to his infantry, and that is the element of preventing him from timing me out. So it looks like that. Looks like this is going well, and he won't be able to time me out. And I think the next fight will be a good example of how if your Season 6 infantry is alone without the archer, even a Season 5 team can kill you. So here I want to showcase why you get timed out so easily. And he might actually end up timing me out. The damage here that I'm dealing completely disappeared. And that is because about a minute to a minute and a half into the battle, all stacks disappear. So the buff that the infantry got from the archer, it's gone now. And your damage will just stay this low until the end of the battle when you get timed out. Either that or you kill the enemy. So he didn't time me out, which is good. But there was a real possibility that he could have timed me out. But it would have been fine because his HP was low enough that my next team would be able to handle it without losing my Morgan. So now his team will have to deal with my infantry, but you can see how my infantry isn't really able to really show off the power of Season 6 infantry. And that is really just simply because the archer is not there to multiply his damage by like 3. And of course, there's Michael suppressing my damage. You can see Michael's sword. The moment his sword slams down, my damage gets cut by a factor of 0.9. Well, multiply it by like 0.1. But it doesn't matter because my third team kind of counters this team. I'm running the ideal Season 5 team, including Hanzo, and he's running Lisbeth. So I will win by a long shot. So I'm just going to let this play out. and we'll move on to the next fight. So the difficulty of Season 6 fight and what makes it kind of tricky is that depending on the opponent's setup, you will really have to change around your own setups. And this was never really the case for previous seasons. You were either stronger or you were weaker than the opponent. But in Season 6, the dynamics are just so different that you really have to pay attention to what your opponent is running and what you yourself is running. So Joe Zero here, we can see that he's running a different formation. He's running the weak team first, and then progressively stronger teams. So the way to counter this is to attack his weak team with your own weak team. So we can do something like this. And I believe his second team is his strong team. So I'm going to run my strongest team versus his second team. And the goal I have here is to quickly wipe out his second team, because if we take a look at his troop formation here, we can see that the formation is really bad. If his formation was good, I probably wouldn't stand a chance versus him because he would just be able to time me out. But because his formation is bad, 1-to-1-to-1 formation, we can kind of take advantage of that by, I'll just show you how. So let's adjust the formation. Personally, I would run, so since this is the first team, I would run something like this. And Windstrider doesn't matter here because I know I can't beat this first team. This is without question. So I'm just going to equip Windstrider on my strongest team. And just as kind of an insurance sake, I don't think anything's going to happen to my archer. But I don't want, in case my first team dies, I don't want my archer to die. Because if my archer dies, it's immediately a loss for me. So I'm just going to run something like a 1-to-1. Sorry, not a 1-to-1. I meant a 20k to, 20,000 to this. And this is mostly for my cavalry to wipe out his archer. And then for, actually I'll run 25. I'll run like 25,000. And then for my infantry to survive long enough to kill his next team's archer. That's kind of the hope. Let's see. So I want to run something like this. Yeah, something like that. I'm just going to run 5,000 here. Yeah. Last final check. This looks fine. This looks fine. I don't need 5,000. Last final check. This looks fine. Okay. And let's hope for the best. So my first goal here is to just kill his team. And the reason why Hanzo is stronger than Lisbeth is because Hanzo is able to shave down the infantry much better than Lisbeth can. So after his infantry dies, there's not much he can do. Yeah, there's not much to actually comment on here. You can see how fast this infantry is dying. And that is simply because of how strong Hanzo's rage skill is. So once his infantry dies, the rest of his team just melts. And versus his next team, I really want to show you how little damage my team is able to deal. So he starts out at 201,000 troops. And let's see how much damage I'm able to deal with my 150,000. So once his cavalry uses his rage skill, I'm pretty much dead. So I dealt a total of 1,500 damage. Incredible. Okay, so I didn't really need to use 2,000 archer, but it doesn't really matter. 2,000 versus one troop, pretty much the same thing. And so my main goal here is to kill his archer. Okay, so I was almost able to kill his archer, but it's not a big deal. Actually, it is quite a big deal. Okay, here we go. Now his archer is dead. So once his archer is dead, it's just really up to my infantry now. And I really want my infantry to be able to deal sufficient damage to him without taking too much damage, because the job of my infantry here is to deal with his archer in the next round. I need to kill his archer in the next round. Otherwise, I don't think my team can handle his team. I mean, I can handle it, but he's going to time me out. And that's the issue of being the attacker. So with 147,000 infantry, let's see if I can kill his archer. So although I said that the infantry is kind of bad by itself, he's still quite good at killing the archer, especially if you have like 150,000 of them. So let's take a look here. So when the archer is under the shield, the ticks really don't do much damage. But when the shield is down, the 3-second ticks deal quite a significant amount of damage. So the archer is almost dead. One more hit. One more. Come on. And this is a win for me. So you can see how close of a shave that was. And it is something that you kind of get used to in Season 6 combat. But I think it is something that makes it quite interesting as well. So now his Season 6 team is without the archer, meaning that his infantry will be able to deal like no damage to me. And the reason why I didn't use a lot of archers is because his cavalry is still there. His cavalry is still going to rape my archers. So I use one archer and then infantry and cavalry heavy so that I can kill him before he times me out. So let's see if I'm able to do that. So his cavalry is dead, which is good because the cavalry deals a lot of damage to your own cavalry, especially if the infantry is not buffed. The majority of that damage is coming from his cavalry. So I want to kill his cavalry as fast as possible. So here we are able to prevail with a fairly big margin. So let's move on to the next fight. So JFK, his team is kind of bad now. It's really bad now, and I think it's because he was changing things around for the Battle of the Sorter setups. So I'm just gonna run fairly standard pressure heavy compositions against him. So I'm going to run this. And this is really just to prevent kind of my archer from dying against this weak team. This. And yeah, this should be fine. I don't think there's much to be worried about. So I'm going to show how bad Season 5 is against Season 6, especially when you are not stronger than your opponent stats-wise. And I hope this fight can demonstrate that. So let's see what happens. Yeah, overall, I'm taking very little damage, and I'm dealing a lot of damage, especially with my Windstrider, because I think what's going on is that the archer is buffing the infantry so much that it is indirectly buffing the Windstrider. Okay, next fight. So in this fight, the only real threat here is the infantry, but because the infantry is not boosted by the archer, it is not really a threat. It is mostly there to stall, but because I have my full Season 6 team, it cannot really stall me. So you can see that his archer and cavalry died almost instantly, but his infantry is still alive. And that is really attributed to how tanky the Season 6 infantry is. But under the assault of my full Season 6 team, it really doesn't stand a chance. So I'm just going to skip the next fight probably. Well, the next team is his strongest team, at least according to this setup. But I don't think there's much to see here. Okay, moving on to the next fight. I was hoping for an easier fight, but it looks like we have to adjust our setup again. And this is really never something that we had to do prior to Season 6. We just ran like the same team. At most, we like changed teams around. But now we actually have to change the troop compositions depending on who we're facing, which is a little bit annoying. So yeah. So here, what did I run against him again? Oh my god, I kind of forgot. So here. I think this is the team setup, same setup. Now I'm kind of confident, so I'm just going to use one troop. 1 troop, please. And 20,000 should be more than enough. And then we go to the limit. And here I would run, what did I run? I think I run 1 troop and then something like this. Okay, let's go. And what makes this kind of exciting is that you kind of have that 30-minute time limit of your buffs, of your formation buffs. If that runs out, then your fights will become a little bit harder. Not significantly, but just a little bit. I'm just going to skip this because I know the outcome. Let's just check to see everything is good. So you can see my infantry killed his archer, and that was really important. Next opponent is, oh my god. Let's switch our formations around again. What is his formation again? It is, okay. So against him, I would run this. Right? Was this what I used? Okay, yeah. I think it is. So a 1-to-1 ratio, something like that. And then a probably 1-to-1 ratio again. And I'm just going to run 10,000 this time. I don't think 15,000 was necessary. And something like, yeah, I really want to be sure here, because I do not want to get wrecked simply because I left this team on a sliver of health and my third team's cavalry gets killed. Let's do this. Good. And my last opponent. Oh, that was my last opponent. Great. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed my live demonstration of the Season 6 meta, the Season 6 solo meta, I should say. The rally meta is very different, and I will probably cover that in the Battle of Conquest, or whatever that's called now. Versus Psycho, I think what I will run is, because I will be on the defense, I will run something like, let me check what is his strongest team. So his strongest team is his first team. So I'm going to try to time out his, I'm just going to try to time him out. So let's set my formation as follows. So because I'm on the defensive side, I don't need that many cavalry, all infantry, and he's going to get timed out so bad. When you're on the defensive side, I always suggest to use 1 archer, because your goal really is to time him out. Actually, no. It will kind of depend on what he's running. So I'm going to check tomorrow if he's running. Actually, I'm too lazy to check. I'm just going to put 8,000. And this is just so that he cannot run a dummy composition against me and kill my archer. And I'm going to do it like this. Let's do it like, let's do it like this. I don't want to use Morgan here. Give me back my Season 6. And I would run standard, this. And I don't even know if I want to run this, because if I run this in the future, they're going to run the same thing, and I'm going to be very sad. Because if they run something like this, especially with their godly stats, I'm just going to get wrecked. So fuck it. I'm not going to run anything. I'm going to run standard. Actually, I'm going to just forfeit. I am entirely going to forfeit. Because I already made top 4. It doesn't matter. I got my clamps. I don't need anything more. So hope everyone enjoyed. This was my commentary on the Season 6 meta and the solo play between Apex Arena and Legends Arena. How can you attack? how can you defend, and the optimal compositions around that, at least for now. Because I think in the future, they will change the archer so that it doesn't instantly die to the cavalry, as well as the infantry. Right now, the archer is just, the season 6 archer, I should say, is just in a very weird spot. It's good against other seasons, but very bad against season 6. All right, I'll see everyone in the next video. Bye-bye.